I'm LaVora Perry, and Nia Dawn Perry Richardson is on camera, and we're interviewing Sheila Sharpley for Case Western Reserve University's Social Justice Institute's Voicing in Action project. Today is February 22nd, 2014. Okay, so Sheila, tell us about yourself and the history of your family.
Well, my name is Sheila Hunt Sharpley. I grew up here in East Cleveland. I've been here since 1965. It was my mom, my sisters. I have 9 sisters and 4 brothers. And we all went to Shaw. Graduated from Shaw, and
Well, where'd you live before you came to East Cleveland?
well, before I came to East Cleveland, I grew up on Wade Park, but I don't remember that because we moved. I had to be about 3, so everything I know it's been here in East Cleveland. Mm-hmm. All my memories have been here.
Where on Wade Park did you live?
On Ashbury by Ashbury 105.
And, all 13 of you, all 14 of you, you and your siblings, lived in the same house in East Cleveland?
No. Off and on, it was a rotation of siblings in the household. My mom only had 3 natural children, but my dad had children. We grew up knowing my father's children, and we all grew up as siblings. So at any given time, my mom would go get my sister Ava or my sister Wanda, and she'd bring them over to the house. Or, at one point, they were living with us, going to school from East Cleveland, living with us in the household. So it was kind of, at any given time, it'd be, like I say, it's 3 naturals, but it'd end up being maybe 7 of us in the house,
Okay. And out of your siblings, where do you fall? Are you the oldest or the third or what?
Well, coming from my mom, it's 3. I'm the baby. Inclusive with my dad, all of the kids, siblings there. I am, 4th from the last. It's 3 under me.
Okay. And your dad, he had how many different moms with your other siblings? Or just one mom? Other mom?
My dad has been married 4 times. Yeah.
And each wife had children?
No.
Okay.
No. Only, 2 of the wives had children.
Okay. So, what can you think back? You've already said that in your house there were always a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm.
So how was that?
It was fun. It was never a dull moment. Of course, everybody had their own way about them, but it was exciting. We fought. We lived, we loved, we laughed. We were always each other's best friends because we didn't have to go outside the house to have fun. We could have fun in the house. So it was a lot of fun. It really was.
Can you think back to your earliest memories of East Cleveland and talk about what life was like back then?
Okay. Let's see. My earliest memories of East Cleveland. I remember as a kid growing up, 3 doors down, it was Mama and Papa. It was an elderly white couple we used to call them Mama and Papa. They lived 3 doors down from us, and we would go down there, and the old man would go down. When we go down there, he would come out on the porch and do tricks, hand tricks, yo-yo, that kind of stuff. But they also owned Mary's Sweet Shop. There used to be a candy store on Hayden Avenue called Mary's Sweet Shop, and they were the proprietors. So they would always, they were like the gingerbread house. We come there and they give us treats and candy and stuff like that. Let's see, back during that time, East Cleveland was still predominantly white. There was the, slow infiltration of blacks coming in the neighborhood, but it was still predominantly white. So, like I said, you had the hardware store. You had, I remember the library was North Branch Library used to be a laundromat. The Q5, the daycare, that used to be a Lawson store.
So what neighborhood are you talking about? Where was your house?
Right there, I lived on East 135th Street, and where the area I'm talking about is right there on Hayden Avenue, where Silverman's is. Where Silverman's, of course, that wasn't there. There used to be a whole row of apartment buildings, and attached to the apartment buildings were bars. You know, all those were torn down to make way for Silverman's. Across the street where the library is, it was a lot of buildings and stores and stuff over there. It was a whole strip of stores. Like I said, the North Branch Library used to be a laundromat. Next door, the Q5 used to be a Lawson's. And then you had Bondi's, the grocery store. And also, on Hayden, used to have a movie theater, the Hayden Theater. And I remember the day that it closed. I remember the time it closed. And everybody got dressed up. That was back in the day when you get dressed up and go to movies. Everybody got dressed up in the neighborhood, and we were all going to the movies. And I was a kid, and we walked in, and I remember that it used to have like red velvet curtains and this royal red and gold carpeting, like an old movie theater, you know, like silent picture kind of thing, and these big glass chandeliers. And I don't even know what movie we all went to see, but I remember everybody in the neighborhood walking up to the movie theater. It was like a crowd just trying to get in, which it normally never was. And we all walked in, and we all saw the movie. I can't even tell you what the movie was, but when we left the movie theater, everybody was crying. And I looked at Mom, I was like, why is everybody crying? And she was like, because it's closing. I was like, well, you know, so she's like, well, it's closing down. So everybody had this, you know, was real sad, this real somber kind of thing going on. And like I said, I didn't understand the dynamics of it, but it was an ending of an era, you know. It was changing.
Where was the theater located?
Right there on Hayden Avenue. As a matter of fact, right there, you know where East Cleveland Cable is located? Mm-hmm. And you know that infamous field where the girls were found, one of the girls were found? Right there. Mm-hmm. It's right there.
And you're talking about the three young women who were found murdered by this past summer of 2013.
Right. And also I have a picture of it, the theater.
Okay.
This is an old
Can you hold
picture.
that up so the camera can see it? All right. So
and this is showing the closing of the theater.
Does this camera?
I just want to be clear. You said you lived on 135th, so it's 135th and Hayden?
Right, East 135th Street and Hayden. It's the street right behind Silverman's.
Okay, all right. So what else can you remember about, you know, your earliest times in East Cleveland?
Well, I remember that we had a swimming pool right behind Chambers, and every year we open up, and it would seem like every year somebody would crack their skull in the swimming pool. But every year Chambers had a swimming pool, and it would charge quarter, 15 cents or whatever, because they had the lifeguards. You come and you would swim. They would open it up as soon as the first warm day, and it would close, you know, right before school. And it also attached to it, it also had a playground for the other kids, you know, to play and swing. And then it had a kiddie playground area too. And I remember that in the playground area, we would all go over there, and I can't think of the name of the spinning thing that you get on, spin it around, you just kind of lay back and spin. They eventually had to remove that because so many kids were just sliding off, busting their heads, or sliding underneath it, you know, that kind of thing. But that was the number one attraction at the playground. I remember we used to have the ice skating rink up at right where the Civic Center is, Martin Luther King Civic Center. Shaw High had their own skating rink, and it will open up in the fall. Everybody skated because that was what you did in East Cleveland. As soon as fall hit, everybody got skates, and they went up to the skating rink, and that's what you got for Christmas. You got skates
So it was an ice skating rink?
It was an ice skating rink. And they would sell cocoa, and I didn't go. I never learned. I was one of those ones that never learned how to skate. I just went for the socialness of it. You know, go up there, stand around on my skates, drink hot cocoa, and watch everybody else. But that was the place. That was a place to be. East Cleveland also had, when the Hayden movie theater closed, they also had packed it up with the Continental. So the Continental sat, I want to say, right here next where the Wendy's is. You know, that was the other major movie theater here in East Cleveland. On Sundays, they would have a mean kung fu theater where they would play kung fu movies from beginning to end. You come in for one price, stay all day long. You know, I remember going there seeing The Godfather. I remember going there seeing The Omen. That was a place to be on a Saturday or Sunday. You went to the Continental movie theater. You know, what else? They had Shaw Lane's bowling down the street. You know, you can go bowling.
Down the street where?
Where? Let's see. Do you know where AutoZone and that dollar store? Somewhere right in there used to have Shaw Lane.
So you're talking about, can you name the streets you're talking about? Euclid and?
Euclid and Grassmere, you know, right in there. It was the bowling. And if I'm not mistaken, I remember everybody, since I was on the lower half of East Cleveland and, you know, not up there by Shaw. A lot of people remember Fisher Fazio's being right there where Shaw is, you know. Some of Shaw not being there, but they had the grocery store, Pick and Pay or Fisher Fazio. But I don't remember that, you know. But it was a lot of things here in the community. The community was very tight, very clean. Growing up on my street, it is extremely. My mom was a single mother, and at that time it was frowned upon, you know, because everybody there had a mother and a father. I grew up in the era where it was always, you know, a mother and a father, and we were the odd people out because my mom was a single mother. So it was kind of hard growing up, you know. Like I said, today's time nobody thinks about that. That's just the way it is. But back during that time, it was kind of taboo, and you know, they were like, "Oh my God, that's a woman. She has kids, and she's not married." You know.
I mean, did anybody say anything to you directly about it? Or was it
not directly, but they treated us differently. You know, but there was that difference because I think they associated. I don't even know why, but they associated us not having a father with being bad, being thieves, being, I don't know, everything negative, fast, or, you know, all of that, you know, because it was just my mom. They even treated my mom differently, you know. They had a street club that was real tight, and every summer the street club would get together and we had camp. And at everybody's house, they had different things that you would do. You spend the week at that person's house, you know. And Miss Black, the lady next door, she did the arts and crafts, and we would go over there and build our popsicle sticks and blah, blah, blah. And then Miss Taylor, they were the house that did the field trip, so she was the one to take us down to the lake and blah, blah, blah. So each house had specific things that you did, you know, during that time. Well, my mom didn't fit in because my mom was a working mom. She couldn't be a part of that. She was always at work. And then she had her own set of friends, you know. So they were always, when she would come around, you know, if they were sitting on the porch, they would get quiet, you know. I remember one time they were sitting on the porch and they were having a little social hour, and they were all having cocktails and sitting on the porch, and I was over at my girlfriend's house, and all of a sudden I heard somebody say, "Oh, shh, here she comes, here she comes, here she comes." And so I looked, I peeked out, I was like, "Who are you talking about?" So I peeked out and I was like, "My mother," you know. So they didn't know I was in the house listening. So they said, "Here she comes, here she comes, here comes Carletha, here she comes." Mama was walking fast and hurried up the street. So they said, "Oh, hi, Carletha, how you doing?" So my mom was like, she talked real fast, and she walked real fast. And she was finding you. So they said, "Would you like to come up and have a drink?" They were banking on her saying no. But my mom knew that they were talking about her. So she said, "Yeah, I'll come up there, I'll have that drink." So they were like, audibly, they was like, here she come, you know. So she tore up them stairs real quick, and I shot around because I didn't want her to know I was seeing any of this. She came up on that porch, put her hands on her hips like this, looked at everybody on the porch. So they said, what you drinking? She said, I'll have a vodka. What you drinking with? She said, nothing. So she grabbed the drink. She looked at him, tilted it back, slammed it down. I'll see y'all later, and ran back down the stairs. They were just blown away. And I was like, look at my mother. But yeah, it was different. It was just a different time.
Now, were they black women or white
Black women.
Okay.
They were all black women.
And did your mom ever talk to you about this whole dynamic that was going on?
No. She just pretended. My mom was a very proud woman, and she just pretended like it just didn't. It didn't happen, or it didn't affect her. Not like that, you know. And she wanted it not to affect me, but it did, because we were different. We were considered different, and we were treated differently, you know.
So did anything ever happen to you along those same lines?
As far as
it's because your mom was a single mom.
Yeah. I remember one time going over this one lady's house. It was two Miss Taylors on the street, and I remember going over Miss Taylor's house, and her daughter had every Barbie you could shake a stick at, dollhouse, and then she had a room that was phenomenal. She had a canopy bed. Everything was white. It was new. It was pink. It was pretty, and it was just hers. Whereas for me, I always shared a bed or slept, you know, where I could on the floor, or you know, with everybody else. So when I walked into her room, I was just blown away. I was like, wow, look at her room. It's beautiful. She has her own bed. She has a canopy. It's you know, our dolls were all lined up. We all ran up there, and I guess I must be about 3 or 4 years older than you know, Leslie at the time. And we were upstairs, and her mom says, you know, Leslie, if you all leave out of this room and this room is not clean, I'm whooping you. So, you know how kids playing, we forgot about that, and everybody was, Dad, you're it, and somebody ran down the stairs. Next you know, all the kids ran down, we all ran down the stairs. I got to hit the bottom of the stairs, and I remember what her mom said, oh, is she going to get in trouble? I was always a thoughtful kid. So I went back upstairs, and her room was tore up. It was just everything. I made up her bed, and I put her pillows back on the bed. Plus, I was just admiring it, you know, and I put her dolls back up, and her mother came in here, and she said, what are you doing? I said, I was just cleaning up her room because she said she was getting a whooping if her room wasn't clean. She said, you get out of my house. You get out of my house right now. Did you take anything? I said, I will never take anything. She said, get out of my house and don't you come back in here anymore. Don't you come back in here anymore. I said, okay, I'm sorry. Not knowing, you know, I didn't really understand it as a kid then, but I know now. And then the same lady, fast forward, you know, let's say 4 or 5 years, I'm downtown, and that's when they used to have, Higbee's? No, May Companies, you know, May Companies. And we were all at May Companies, and downtown, the May Companies on the ground level, the basement level was the discount. And that was back in the 70s when everybody had those big, looked like duffel bags, but they were purses.
And I just want to clarify, you're talking about downtown Cleveland.
Yeah.
Say that.
Yeah, downtown Cleveland. And I went there with my cousin and Miss Taylor's older daughter. Now, she's about 4 years older than me. We go downtown together, and we were standing down there, and all of a sudden, she got a hanker, and she wanted these pants, so she bent down to steal them. And so she bent down, unzipped her bag, and she was wrestling with him, trying to get in the bag. And I'm standing behind her going, oh, my God. Rosalind. I'm looking at, you know, and she's saying, what? All irritated, why? I said, it's somebody behind you. You know, she turned around. It was security. He said, act normal. He said, if you create a fuss, then you're going to draw attention to yourself. Just act normal. I'm just going to take you upstairs. She was like, oh, she started crying and everything. They take her upstairs, you know. Of course, they notify her. Her mother is the same lady that booted me out the house. Her mother comes down there because they can't release her to nobody but her. Mother comes down there. I'm sitting on the stairs because in Rosalind's purse is my money for the rap band. I can't leave. Mom comes in, you know, mad, you know. She says, where's Rosalind? I'm sitting on the stairs because security's up the stairs. And I'm sitting there like this, and when I see her, I said, Rosalind's upstairs. She said, where's Rosalind? I said, she's upstairs. She tears upstairs. She turns around, she looks at me. She said, why are you not upstairs? I said, because I didn't steal anything. I didn't steal anything. She goes up there, gets Rosalind, they release her, and we get in the car. Her and my cousin and myself, we get in the car. And her mom, Rosalind, tells her that I'm the one that stole the pants and that I put her in the bag and she got in trouble. So her mother is telling me, you stole those pants. I knew you were. I said, Miss Taylor, if I would have stole them, they would have arrested me and not her. They called her stealing the pants. So Rosalind's, please God, she's praying, telling me, because her mother's rear mirror is faced on me. She's sitting here. She can't see her face. But she's like this against the wall. Please tell me you did it. Begging me to say I did it because she didn't want to get in trouble with her mom. I said, I'm not going to say that. And she said, who are you talking to? I said, Rosalind. She wants me to say that I did it. I didn't do it. I don't steal. I don't have a lot of stuff, but I'm not going to steal, It was just a big hullabaloo. My mom ended up having it. When I got home, my mom ended up going down and mom said, tell me the truth. You stole it. I said, Mom, I didn't. Rosalind did. She did. Well, fast forward a couple of years later. Of course, she never believed that I wasn't trying to steal in a room and that I didn't steal the pants. But it was her daughter who got, at Ameritrust, got charged with embezzlement because she was stealing, what you call those, traveler's checks.
Did she still think you did it?
No, I'm sure she don't now. All these years, flashback. It wasn't me. So those were the kind of things, and it wasn't just her. It's so many incidents, and like I said, just growing up. It was just a different time, a different era, and nobody, there was no single parents. Either your husband was dead, or he was in the military. You just didn't have one.
Now, where did your mom work?
My mom worked at VA Hospital for 19 and a half years in the cafeteria.
Okay. That's where she retired from?
Yeah, she retired from there. Yeah.
Okay. And I know that your mom has lost her vision. How did that happen?
My mother lost her vision. She had nasopharyngeal cancer. And it just so happened one day, and it happened so quickly. My mom always suffered from sinus problems, and her sinuses would swell up, and she always had infections. So when she started talking nasally, we were thinking it's another sinus infection. But then we noticed that when she looked at you, one of her eyes were traveling in like it was just wandering. So that wasn't normal. I remember the day I told my mom, I said, my sister had called me and she said, me and Mom went to the movies, and when we left, we were leaving the theater, she says Mom couldn't stand the traffic coming towards her and that it was making her nauseated and dizzy. And I said, that makes no sense. Well, later on that night, I ended up taking her to the emergency room. She did have a really bad sinus infection, and they started IV, but they also ran a CAT scan, and they saw shading in between her eyes. Well, it turned out she had a tumor the size of a half a fist, and it was resting on her optic nerve. And so that's what was causing her eye to just gravitate inward, because it was there. So at that time, they had no other recourse but to aggressively attack it, because it was in her brain. So, pretty much, we have to do what we're going to do. For the next year, she went through the chemo, went through the radiation, ended up, and hear me when I say this, the type of cancer she has, the survival rate is not that high, but she survived. Okay. But as a result of the treatment, it cured it, but it killed a lot of other things, The treatment almost killed her. So it was a year after she was in remission, she started to say that, I'm not seeing. And when she was saying, I'm not seeing, I was taking it as, her vision was blurry. Not understanding when she said, I'm not seeing, that what was happening every day when she was waking up, she was losing more and more of her vision. So in the morning, one day she woke up, she could see from the ankles up, a person from the ankles up, and then it got from the neck up, from the waist up, and then from the neck up, and then it just gradually pinholed out. It took 2 weeks for her to lose her vision. And it took at least a good 6 days in for me to really grasp what she was saying, because I didn't understand until she said she was trying to catch the bus and she couldn't see the bus. And I said, what do you mean you can't see the bus? She said, I can't see it. I can't see it. And then the next day she woke up, she was totally blind in her left eye. So, yeah, it's been really hard.
Mm-hmm. Did they say what caused it? Did she smoke or anything? Or?
It is the type of cancer she had. They said it's from long-term smoking and drinking.
Okay. Did she stop doing those things?
My mom stopped smoking. Cold turkey. Stopped smoking. I want to say 6 months before she was diagnosed.
Okay.
She just stopped.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, hopefully we will get to interview her.
I know.
So in what ways has East Cleveland changed over time?
Well, can I take a break?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my mouth is getting dry.
Okay, so yeah, my question was, in what ways has the city changed over time?
I think over time, what happened to East Cleveland is that it became a rental community. I think that once people that were my mom's age, when they started dying off, their children had no interest in coming to living in East Cleveland. They went on to other places. They migrated to other states, cities, suburbs, that kind of stuff. And with that transition, it became a rental kind of city. So instead of it being a homeowner city, it kind of shifted into the older ones are dying off. The young ones that are coming in, they're renting from the old ones, or maybe my parents died, they left me the house. I have no intentions on moving back to East Cleveland, but I'm going to rent it out. So you had a lot of absentee landlords, and like I said, you had a lot of renters who have no vested interest in the city because it's kind of transitory. So I think with the transition of time, and you have the influx of people who are renting, and it just kind of changed. It was no longer the pride of I own my house, because if you notice, if a homeowner lives in the household or upstairs, downstairs, we're not going to have a whole lot of music, noise, traffic, all that other stuff. But if you have a homeowner who lives in the next suburb or in another state, there's nobody there to house or police that or even care, So I think what happened with that, like I said, is just an influx of renters and kind of transient kind of people,
So I'm wondering, because you're not the first person who said that, if the landlord, even though the landlord doesn't physically live even in East Cleveland, but if the landlord communicates pride in that property, comes by to check it out, or if they're not even here, sends somebody to check it out, sticks to, says, no, you cannot do this and that here, or you're going to have, you're breaking the lease. That's written into the lease. Do you think that would make a difference if the landlord was more diligent about
I
their
think
property?
I absolutely, positively think that will make a big difference. But unfortunately, what's happening now is like the house is sitting next door to me. Well, I know where the landlord is, but he's had several strokes. His wife is up in age, and she's like, I can't do anything with the house, so whatever happened. So you had people who just moved in, wasn't paying any rent, squatters, stayed there until they tore it literally down, and now it's just sitting there. They still own the property, and the wife is saying, I'm too old, I can't fool with that, whatever happened, let the city take it over, theoretically, yeah, that can happen. It can be turned around if you had somebody come in who, like I said, young blood, that, or you don't even have to be young, but just a
Managing
concern.
the property.
Yeah, just manage the property. It was another alumni that went to Shaw. His name was, I'll say like he died, Keith. McLaughlin. His father was an innovator. He was the first person ever to develop a drive-through, and it was Vipco right there on Hayden. You went there, you got your music. Every Friday went there. Was Teen there. She worked behind where you get your records and your 8-track tapes. And he developed a system where a drive-through, where you actually drive up, and he would come out and give you whatever it is you wanted. He was very lucrative, and this was way like in the early part of the 70s, that was going on. Well, Keith came up. He eventually moved to Florida, retired, moved to Florida. He sold the property, and the property changed hand, and it changed hand again. Now it's just all torn down. But his son came up with an excellent idea. What he said is that it would be interesting if all the alumni were to get together and we form since we have this big thing, every year, how come we can't get together and sit down, go to the table, and all alumni, whoever wants to participate, put in money, and we start buying up this property, and we'll call it the Alumni Association. And, everybody invest, X amount of dollars, and we all work together, we're fixing it, and we all collectively own it together, Well, he presented it in a nice tiny package in a bowl, back during the time that, not Norton, but when we had Brewer, and it just never materialized. I don't know. It was so much stuff happening during that time. But
speaking of mayors, the mayors.
Yes, the mayors. And it just never materialized. I don't know. He had said something about they were going to talk about it or whatever it was, but it just never materialized. So I came to him, I said to him, because I was the first person to respond, I said, that would be one heck of an idea. I'm all over it. If you want to do it, I'm all over it. That's the least we could do. I think a lot of the money has gone out of East Cleveland. I think alumni that did well in East Cleveland, instead of coming back and putting the money back into the city, they took that money and went other places. We have a lot of doctors. We have famous musicians. As a matter of fact, we even have what was the lady who hit the lottery some years ago? And remember that whole shimmy sham thing came up with the other lady said that she won it, and it ended up being, it was some lady came forth and said, I got the winning lottery ticket, and she hired an attorney, and come to find out she was fraudulent. It was a fraud, and the ticket was actually won by another lady when she had got like $40-50 million. Well, she was an alumni from Shaw. She owned the bar down the street. Still within a mile radius of East Cleveland. She owned, I can't think of the name of the bar. When I tell you,
it's actually in Cleveland. Is that
it's actually in Cleveland. So she was still here. $40-50 million. You gave $1 million back to the city or to the school district or whatever, or $500,000 a donation or anything. Do you know how what that could have did to the city? When I tell you, she ran up out of here. The drinks were still sitting on the table. She didn't even close the bar and left and moved to Georgia. That's where she lives. Took her whole family and moved to Georgia. And I know for a while the bar was kind of tied up in litigation because literally she just was like, I'm out, And like I said, so many musicians. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe, I think Mayor Frank Jackson is alumni from Shaw, from East Cleveland. Hey, Mark Gordon from LaVora, East Cleveland. Kanya Doss, she's a musician from East Cleveland. It's so many people that are from East Cleveland, and the ones that are not so famous, that we don't know the name or their name is not out there, but doing really well, never came back and, to the community and put anything back in the community. They took it and left and took the resources other places,
I want to just double back to some things you said off camera, just for the historical record. Now, you talked about cancer in certain areas of East Cleveland. Can you just tell us about that?
Sure. I grew up on East 135th Street, and when I was growing up, cancer was a thing for old people. You know, that was back during the days when somebody died in the house, they put a wreath on the door, and you'd be like, oh my God, somebody died. Well, now that's just the thing you do. It's just a wreath on the door. You know, on my street.
East 135th, off of what street?
It's off Shaw. East 100, because there is East 135th Street off Man, but this one is off Shaw. And it's been just a plague of cancer on my street. I can't even tell you how many people have had cancer, including my mom. My mom's had cancer 3 times living on that street. Where she currently lives now, because my mom, the house we grew up in, my mom moved right next door to it. You know, she moved out, moved right next door to the house we grew up in. And the people live downstairs. Both of them died of cancer. Then the people who live next door, the husband and wife, both of those people died of cancer. Miss Humphreys stayed across the street. She died of cancer. Mr. and Mrs. Lewis died of cancer. Mr. Daniels died of cancer. Mr. Daniels' mother died of cancer. Next door, Mr. Saunders, his wife died of cancer. Mr. Saunders right now has prostate cancer. Let's see, who else? Gail Stone, she died of cancer. Who else? Pat, Miss Butler, she was a teacher at Shaw. She died of cancer. It's just so many people over there that has been plagued with cancer, had cancer on that street. Mr. Taylor, there's another Mr. Taylor, he died of cancer. You know, it's just been Miss Blackman, that's another one. She died. Her cancer came back and she died.
And you said the youngest one you recall is
The youngest one I recall is it was I can't think of this guy who grew up on my street. I used to play with his younger brother and sister. His younger brother's sister name was Pat and Ducky. I don't even know what Ducky's real name is, but their older brother, they moved off the street. He was only their older brother was only like 22. And his mom died of cancer. I didn't know she died of cancer. I just knew she died. But he moved off the street and he got custody of his 2 younger siblings. And then he told me that his son died of cancer 4 days after his mom, while he was living on that street, and his son was only 6 years old. So, you know, it's like I said, it's just been an influx of cancer. Like, I don't know if it's blowing, I don't know if it's radioactive, I don't know if it's the water, I don't know if it's the old sewer pipes, I don't know if it's some asbestos they disturbed or what. But I know it's just been a rash of cancer, and that is not normal. And we're not even talking about a mile radius. We're talking about a street.
okay. And you talked about how you think the city's changed over time. And you kind of talked about what you think contributed to those changes. You said you think it's because of the renter situation. Do you think anything else contributed to the changes that have taken place?
No, I really.
I'm sorry. You said renters, and you also said the fact that people leave and don't get paid.
Right. They don't. I think it's the both of them. The fact that they leave, they don't bring or give anything back, and that we have a whole transient kind of movement going on in East Cleveland. Whereas if you call a meeting, I remember going to one of the meetings that Chief Spots had given, and it was a community-wide, community call meeting. And we got up there, and literally, it was 28 people there. And he was so defeated. He said, you know what? I'm beginning to think that either you don't care or you just don't care. And it's both.
Because the turnout was so low?
Because the turnout was so low. If you have a whole bunch of people who have, like I said, they don't have a vested interest in the city, they're not going to come. They don't care about all that, because I'm not going to be here 6 months from now. So while, you know, or call to action, or just like the meetings they have here at the library, you know, they don't care. because they're not going to be here long. You have the average, I want to say, on my mom's street alone, I think it's 4 steady people, and that's the old people that are left there. But it's just like every 4 or 5 months, it's new people in, new people out, move people in, move people out. The house across the street from me has had 4 tenants in the last 3 years. So, they don't care. They don't want to come to the city hall and town hall meeting because they're not going to be here, Mm-hmm. And then the ones that are, they're older, and the ones that want to come, they might not can, like my mom, she can't. Mm-hmm. I come, but.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that racism has impacted you personally, and if so, how?
Well, I remember growing up as a kid, across the street, there was a white family that stayed across the street, and the little girl's name was Dobby. And Dobby, I used to play with her all the time, and she was so mischievous, And it's funny because she was the one that was bad, but her mom thought I was bad because I don't know, I guess because I was black, I don't know. But her mom would always say, don't go over there and play with her. That girl is bad. When I was the one getting whoopings for Dobby because she was fascinated with my hair. She was just fascinated. When I was little, my mom did little 4 plaits, and she would, always want to play. And ooh, let me feel your hair. And she would take my braids down. We sit on the back porch, and she would feel my hair, run her fingers, and then try to plait it back up. And I remember my mom coming around the corner, didn't I tell you not to let that girl do your hair? I remember, like I said, the Mary Sweet Shop, Mama and Papa, they were old as I don't know what, and they just loved children. But I remember their daughter stayed upstairs from them, their daughter and her husband. And when we would come on the downstairs porch and, Papa, come outside, and he'd have treats and do tricks, the daughter didn't like it. She would shoo us off the porch, or she'd say, Dad, didn't I tell you not to have these kids over here? Or she was just real short with us. And sometimes she would just write out, tell us to go home, don't come back, that kind of thing. So, it was there. And, growing up in the 60s, 70s, I didn't see a whole lot of me on TV. So my dolls were like, I had a Chrissy doll, I had a Mia doll. The hair popped out and pulled out. And, when I looked in the mirror, that's who I remember telling my mom, I wish I was white. And she was like, what? I said, I wish I was white because I thought that was pretty, because the only person that was black like me on TV at that time was Julia, That's it.
I recently I think it was me, I told about Julia the nurse.
And Corey, I wanted to be in that family, because she was a single mom, but it was cool for her to be a single mom because she was a nurse and had her own high rise. And I was like, oh, I wish Julia was my mom,
Do you think racism has impacted East Cleveland, and if so, how?
I don't know so much that. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I do. I really do. How has it affected East Cleveland? Wait a minute, give me a second. Could you stop? Let me think about that. What you want to say is that it's the opposite. I think, and it's sad to say, I really hate saying it, but I think that when East Cleveland was predominantly white, it fared better, you didn't have loiterers and drug trafficking and broken glass and that kind of thing. The politics. The city wasn't in financial emergency. I think that when it became black ran and black owned, that it just sank like that, really like that Titanic. It started really going down. And I don't know if it was due to match. I just don't know. I don't know if it was greed, because it was a lot of greedy people that came in with the influx. When white people started to leave, there were a lot of blacks that came in and filled that position. And at first we fared, and then it kind of went to the wolves. We had a really bad mayor, Anwar, come in, and then it just really went down from, it really started sinking from there. So I think it's reversed. Sad to say. But I think that once it became predominantly a black city, black owned, black managed, that's when everything started to go wrong, because I don't think that the people that were elected at that time had the city's best interests at heart. I really don't think so.
Is it possible that there were socioeconomic forces in play that laid the foundation for the city's decline? For instance, some people have talked about the the redlining that took place, where the white residents were actually scared into fleeing by real estate agents who would say, you know that your neighbors next door were doing thus and such and thus and such. You should move because I got a house for you out in Beechwood, etc. So that people received those kind of phone calls, while black people were receiving the opposite. There's property available in East Cleveland. So that's one phenomenon that people say took place. And another one is that the white landowners were able to leave their property with violations without fixing them up before they sold them. But then when blacks bought the property, they were hit with citations for damages that should have been taken care of by the people who lived there prior to them. And so therefore they didn't have necessarily the money to fix those, the damages that existed. So those are just two areas where, I hear what you're saying, but I also wonder, because this type of phenomenon has taken place across the country, East Cleveland's not the only one. Even in the area, even just in Cleveland, I grew up in Mount Pleasant, and I know the same decline took place. And when I was a young person, we were already predominantly black, but it was predominantly black, steady working class neighborhood. The way you described East Cleveland once white people left, it didn't just immediately go down.
Right.
There were black people there, and it was a stable community. And also I wonder about drugs. And again, I had a friend once, she's deceased now, who described what happened to Illyria. She said that she remembers the weekend that crack hit. Her city went from, a stable community. The weekend came, and then people who were taking care of their mothers, who took care of their children, all of a sudden they didn't care because all they wanted was for crack.
Right.
And I saw the same thing in Mount Pleasant, but I wasn't living in Mount Pleasant at the time. I was living in New York. I returned to my home, and it was like, what happened? So I wonder, and I know this crack epidemic just kind of hit the United States kind of all at the same time in our urban communities. So I wonder if it's more than just people being black, but if there were a combination of factors that kind of all came down year after year at the same time, but then one thing came in, then the next thing came. So
I agree. I agree. I agree with that too, because it was a combination of it all hitting at once. It was a combination of everything. Like I said, you had people moving out. You had people you had the old people who were hanging on. You had their kids who graduated from college that established other places who had no intentions on coming back. If you have this person living in this house all their life and then it died, they died, that's a empty vacant house. Now that could, all of a sudden with the vacant house comes a lot of other things that, that happen. I do remember like I said, it happened so subtly in East Cleveland, because it didn't just, you just wake up and it just, boom, it just hit. It just kind of happened so subtly, and I think the changing of it with the politics, it all started at City Hall. I think that's where, it just kind of started at City Hall, and especially during the years that you had, you had Unenward and you had O'Mays and you had all these people who were running the government that people trusted to run it, to facilitate the business of East Cleveland, and they didn't have the business of East Cleveland at heart. You had O'Mays had one of the biggest apartment buildings sitting here. I don't know if he still owns it now, but right next door to Starlight Baptist Church, big beautiful apartment building. He just let go, just let it get blighted, let it get backed up in violations, and didn't care, about the city. With that comes, like I say, you have your vagrants, you have your people standing around, you have, your squatters coming in. Like I say, I think it's a combination of just everything.
Okay. Has inequality impacted you personally
Like,
in any kind of way that you can think of?
as far in relation to East Cleveland?
Or just your life in general?
Could you stop? Because I'm trying to think of how to answer that. In East Cleveland, yeah, because, when I was a kid, and like I say, it was more white than black. I remember that most of the teachers were white, and they were female. I remember that it was a couple of teachers, Miss Eva and my sister had a teacher that used to poke her all the time. When she talked to her, she would poke her. Miss Eva used to make me stand in the cloakroom. The cloakroom was the coldest part. Literally talking and frost to come out your mouth. When and she didn't do that to the white kids in the classroom. And like I said, I was never a bad kid. So, and my thing was I would just forget a lot. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Oh, I'm sorry, you told me to do. Did I say that? I would always forget. Nothing would merit me to stand in the cloakroom, but I remember standing in the cloakroom all the time as a kid. And Miss Eva's classroom. I remember my sister being poked by her teacher, my mom going up to school and telling the principal, I don't appreciate how she talks to my daughter. And I don't know verbatim what she called my sister, but that's what prompted my mom to go up to the school was just her whole attitude towards my sister. I also remember, like, growing up, it was always that thing where, because we were black, we had to always be dressed. I remember going downtown Cleveland. My mom said, if you go downtown, we weren't allowed to wear pants because we always had to. We didn't want the white people to think we were wild or reckless, so we didn't care how we dressed. So we always had to dress. If I said, oh, we're going to go downtown to the movie, because they had 2 movie theaters downtown, Mom would make us come in the house to change our clothes, and we had to put on dresses to ride the bus because it was important that we look presentable when we went downtown because we were, mostly white. So, it was just important at that time. Anything outside of East Cleveland, we had to dress. And if we caught the bus, we had to be dressed just like it was Sunday because it was important that we always look presentable, always. So I know I'm kind of rambling, went off on another tangent.
It's fine. Do you think inequality has impacted East Cleveland, and if so, how?
Yeah, you can just look at it. It's the greatest place in as far as geographically, it's the greatest place you could possibly be. We're 8 minutes away from downtown Cleveland. We're right here on the base of the water. We got Case Western Reserve, Cleveland all the colleges and all the major hospitals, everything right here. We got all this wealth around us, but we don't have any here, and I don't understand that, I think because because it's predominantly black, we're forgotten people. It's like we're forgotten people, and it's like if we relinquish the city, if we give it back, or say we let white people come back in, then they're willing to help us. But they don't want to help us if we say we want to stay here and we want to build it ourselves. We don't get the help. You can't tell me that if you don't put a, for instance, that's my whole thing, a Golden Corral, that's my favorite place to eat, on Euclid Avenue, it wouldn't make money. You just can't tell me that, because I like Golden Corral, and I can't think of anybody in East Cleveland that wouldn't go there. You can't tell me if it's not a Walmart or, right there on Euclid Avenue, that people wouldn't come. It wouldn't be the base. Oh, we don't have enough people here in the city to frequent it. That you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. We do. We're spending our money out in other areas. I hate the grocery stores down here. Why is it that when I'm walking to the grocery store, I see brown meat, or I can go in the grocery store, I can get a pack of pork chops, which I don't eat pork, a stand back, and I can get a tire, all in the same place. You shouldn't be that way. I can go to other neighborhoods, and when I go to Dave's, which is not even 10 minutes away, I don't have to be. Nobody's burning incense when I come in, or I gotta buy a DVD or tape or anything like that. It's just a grocery store. It's a grocery store. It's totally different here. It's totally. It's like they treat us like we're less than human. When I walk, like I said, I walked to that grocery store. This Coney's over here, and I walked in. I was just annoyed.
You talking about the one on Euclid and Superior?
Yes, I walked in. Oh my God. Man is selling, outfits and incense, and the apples and the oranges are rotten. It's brown. It's dark. They have liquor right there by the cookies. Who put liquors by the cookies? But that's what they think of us. Here you get your cookies for your kids, and you want to get your 40 ounces. And we're not even talking about high quality beer. We're talking about gasoline. MD-20. Wild Hours. What's that? Old English and all that other rock, Steel Reserve. All this rock gut stuff that's in the store to make our children hyper and to dull us, our senses. Here, get drunk. And like I say, they're not even giving us quality stuff. Here's, like I say, gasoline. It's right there by the cookies. But that's how they treat us. That's what we get. This is a Mecca. This is a home where Rockefeller built. This is a historical point. You have the library. You have the theater. You have all these things. You have these jewels. You have Bill Tapiano, who said he's not moving. He refuses to move. He's like, I will not be moved. He stayed. He was one of the few people that stayed. Where everybody else pulled up stakes and they stayed. Now it comes back. Either you can buy a cell phone, get some rotten meat, or you can get some liquor. That's it. That's what we get.
My brother, he goes to Cleveland State as a post-secondary enrollment option student, and he's in the class with the son of the owner of Coney's.
Oh,
yes. And they've had conversations, and his son was like, yeah, I know the grocery store is horrible and everything.
Really?
Yeah. He's actually in the same class as his son.
Yeah, my son got a ride from him. What happened is he got a ride. He didn't know my son was a teenager. Mm-hmm. So he rolled my son up here. He said, I'm going up to Coney's. My father owns Coney's. And I don't know what expression my son had on his face. But he said, yeah, I know. I know it's bad.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's awful. Anytime he could tell, I know, I don't even eat the food in here. Mm-hmm. I don't eat the food. And the only thing I went in there for was a box. I like the chocolate graham crackers, and I can't find them anywhere else. So I'll go in there and I'll buy the chocolate graham crackers. I'm not buying your rotten, stepped on greens, that's sitting over there wilting. I'm not buying any of that. When I walk in there, I literally have this thing like, I don't even want to touch it, because I deserve better than that. My son deserves better than that. This community deserves better than that. You mean to tell me that we don't deserve fresh food, or, like I say, or a grocery store that's even lit up? It's so dark in there. It's depressing. And lighting has everything to do with your personality and your mood and everything. When you walk in there, it kills you mentally, spiritually. It's dark. You walk in, it's dark. So that just kind of weighs in on you. And then you have 14 rows of coolers, and then you just have rotten food on the outside, rotten food on the outside. I'm like, I deserve better than this. I deserve better than this. A grocery store.
Can you remember a time when the community fought for something?
Let's see. Let me think. Can I remember a time when the community fought for something? The only thing I can remember that the community fought for was they didn't want to tear down the movie theater Continental, and they fought to try to keep that.
And what did people do?
What they did was sign petitions. They went up to City Hall, but pretty much it was nothing that they could do because it just kind of ran its course. Let me see. Is there anything else? Oh, when back a couple of years, maybe about 8 years ago, when East Cleveland was doing the big layoff for the police officers, and I don't know if Brewer was in office, and I think he was in office doing. No. I forget who the mayor was. But anyway.
Sarita Goggins?
I think so. And they were doing that big layoff, and everybody rallied around, came up to City Hall. Even I was up there, my son, and we were outside with picket signs saying, this, you can't do that. We need the protection. Crime is amping up, and the last thing we need is less police officers on duty. And at nighttime, they were only running 4 at that time. So where are you going to drop it down to 2? It's 3 miles, yeah, but it's a lot of miles to cover. So that, and let's see. I'm sure there's other things I just can't think of right now.
What was the outcome of both of those times? Well, first of all, with the theater, why was the theater closing? Was it losing money? Or
the theater was losing money, and they still had the 2 main theaters downtown. Plus, at that time, movies were becoming really expensive.
When you say downtown, you mean downtown Cleveland? Okay.
Downtown Cleveland, they had the 2 dueling movie theaters across the street from each other. I think one was the Hippodrome, and the other one was Grumpy Dome. I know it was, I forget, but it was 2 downtown, so everybody was, going downtown during that time. Movies got really expensive, just like Miles Drive-In, towards the end, they only ran really old movies because to get new movies in, it costs money. And then, the whole movie thing is, who you know and what you know. You can get that movie and you play it over here, and you might get something older. So at that time, that's when they were doing a lot of reruns. New movies weren't coming to the theater. They were just basically rerunning a whole lot of old movies, a lot of old kung fu movies and stuff like that.
And what happened with the layoffs of the police officers? Did that go through, or was it able to be stopped?
It was able to be stopped. They did stop the layoff, and it's funny because they closed the shot with my son, saying don't lay him off because of him. And they closed it, and my aunt said, "Is that Micah on TV?" I said, "Yeah."
How old is Micah?
Micah is 11. He'll be 12 on the 28th.
Okay. Wonderful. So that fight actually resulted in a victory.
Yeah, we won that.
you're the first person I've interviewed that mentioned something other than the Fight for Huron Hospital, by the way.
Oh,
These two
yeah.
things well, I knew about the police, but the Continental, I would never know about that if you hadn't mentioned it. So how have surrounding institutions and cities impacted East Cleveland?
I think that the surrounding institutions in East Cleveland, how have they impacted it? Well, in some ways good, in some ways bad. Well, now I think it's turning around with. That's kind of a tricky question. Some ways good, some ways bad. With Cleveland Clinic coming into East Cleveland, it was a good thing. It was a bad thing. It actually when it came in, it actually kind of saved Huron Road Hospital, because at one time before Cleveland Clinic came in for Huron Road Hospital, it was a guy that used to work there as a janitor at Huron Road Hospital, and he said, I'm working so sporadically now. He says on my floor he said the 2 floors that I do, it's only 2 patients. He said, well, I said 2 patients? He said, yeah. He said, I only have 2 patients, so I'll usually just call and see, exactly, do I need to come in today? Because a lot of rooms were empty. The hospital was running, but it was running in a deficit. Well, there was no patients. So when Cleveland Clinic came in and said, we're going to do the hospital, that was a big yay. It's going to be a turnaround. They amped it up with patients, blah, blah, blah. But then, boo, a couple of years later, we're just going to make it a green space. So it kind of, with that one, that was a yay, something big, something not so big. Now with the condos coming in, Cleveland or what is that case, or it's coming on down Euclid with the condos.
You're talking about, what's the name of those? Do you know?
I don't know.
Circle East.
Circle East. They're coming down with Circle East. I think that's going to be a great thing for the city, because what it is eventually it's going to change the tide where it's going to be. I would love to see East Cleveland as a melting pot like a Coventry, where you have the mix of everybody just kind of there. And I think that them building that building and starting it off, bringing new blood or new people or fresh, into the city, that's a great thing. The more they build, the better. It can't get any. It's just better for the city. It's better for the city.
So what about the surrounding cities, Cleveland and Cleveland Heights? Do you think they've had any impact on our city?
Not really. I don't think. I don't think that Cleveland Heights really impacted our city. I think that our city kind of impacted Cleveland Heights, because when I was coming up, East Cleveland was a force to be reckoned with. So it was parallel to Cleveland Heights. And I remember when I used to tell people where I lived, I made a distinct distinction about, they say, oh, are you from Cleveland? No, East Cleveland, because it was a source of pride. It was clean, it was new, it was beautiful. And that was, where everybody wanted to live. Now I do it the opposite, and they say, where do you live? East Cleveland, Cleveland, because I don't like to make the association to East Cleveland, because it comes with a bad connotation. Everybody's thinking like, when I say East Cleveland is East Cambodia, it's just one of those third world countries. But I think that I kind of got off my train of thought there.
The question was, I was asking if you think other cities have impacted East Cleveland.
Like I said, I think that East Cleveland impacted other cities. I think that now, when Cleveland Heights, if they could raise up their skirt and kind of move back, they would, because they're like, we don't want to be associated with East Cleveland. We hate being so close to East Cleveland. And even so, when you look up the hill and you have those beautiful homes up the hill that are part of East Cleveland, um, they don't even like to be associated with East Cleveland. To them, they really believe that they're Cleveland Heights, but you're not. You're East Cleveland. So you know, I think that now when people think of other suburbs, think of East Cleveland is down. Even Cleveland is like, oh, we don't want East Cleveland. You know, that kind of thing. Cleveland Heights is definitely like, oh, I don't know. That's kind of a blight. Everybody is, you know, kind of shuring away. But we are the crown jewel.
What do you mean by the crown jewel?
Just the location. Location is everything, you know. And we're right here. We're, like I said, we're 8 minutes away from downtown. We have all the cultural centers, art museum, history museum, historical societies, music settlements. You have your Case Western Reserve. You have Cleveland Clinic, University Hospital. You have the Windermere that'll take you anywhere, starting from ground zero and take you all the way across Ohio, you know, darn near. It'll take you, shoot you right out to the airport. We're right here by the lake. It's just a mecca, you know. And anybody that's running out of East Cleveland now, oh, you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot.
What are your thoughts on Forest Hill Park?
Forest Hills Park could be better. I think it could be better. I think I think they maintained. I don't know.
Well, that's it. Was on the same note, Lakeview Cemetery.
Lakeview Cemetery, I love. Lakeview Cemetery is one of the places I love to go. That is, I know it's weird, but I take my son there, and we go, and I like to take pictures of old headstones. I like to walk around. I love the fact that right there, Lakeview Cemetery was originally built because of the stone masons that were carving the headstones there. Well, actually, it was Little Italy was formed because all of them came from a lot of them came from Italy. They came over here and they were masons, and they formed Little Italy because that's what they would get up and they would walk over and they would do the cemetery. It has the largest Tiffany, and Lakeview Cemetery has the largest Tiffany stained glass window in the world there, in which Tiffany himself came and designed the white oval building to house that glass. You have your dignitaries there. Go ahead.
You mean the chapel?
The Wade Chapel.
Okay.
The Wade Chapel. You have a whole bunch of dignitaries there. Oh, I'm sorry, could you stop it? I got this white thing going on in my mouth. But you have Elliot Ness is buried there. You have one of the founding members of AKA, they're there. You have the Stowe brother there. You have, it's like a who's who. You have your Rockefellers, you have your Severance, you have just everything. It's not a cemetery. It is a place to go, to reflect, to think, to have picnics. It's breathtaking. And I don't know if you know it, but they also have a dam in there that is absolutely beautiful. You have Garfield. Him and his wife are still above ground in a mausoleum there. It's just, it's not a cemetery. It is a museum. A museum.
So, what is your vision for the future of East Cleveland?
My vision for the future of East Cleveland is I would like to see it not so much as a residential area, but I think in order to change or move East Cleveland forward for me, I think that it needs to change. I think that instead of it being a residential area so much, I think it will be a great place for like a college area. I think that since we're right here, you got your Case Western Reserve, Cleveland State is not far off. You got your hospitals and all that other stuff. You got your nursing students and doctors and interns and that kind of thing. I think changing it into a place where it's more of a college town. Residents still have the residents and stuff, but more of a college town feel where they build more dorms and bring more businesses and stores and stuff like that. Still keep the park, still keep the historical homes, but a lot of the area that's blighted coming from Lakeview Cemetery, I think all that needs to be torn down, and start building of dorms, housing, for, it should change.
You're talking about the area closest to the Cleveland border.
Right, bring it all the way down.
Up to, Brightwood.
Brightwood, I think it should come all the way. Total streets. Some of those streets only have 1 or 2 houses on it. Just totally, gut it. Tear it down. I think it should come all the way down to Lee Road.
Oh, that would take away our house.
No, the ones that
okay.
Not everybody's house. Not everybody's house, but I think it's a lot of streets. Like one half of Carlion, the upper half of Carlion, it's like a war zone. Mm-hmm. Tear all that down. Mm-hmm. Tear it all down. That bar that sits over there, that is closed on the opposite side of the street. What was the name of that? It's the Cuddy, the whatever. And I got a story about that. That bar closed because it was murder took place there, and my niece was eyewitness in that, and they closed the bar down, and it hasn't been open since. But all of that whole area, tear that down, put either condos, housing for the doctors, nurses, because that's flooded with doctors and nurses, condominiums, apartments, and dorms. That's what I think.
What do you think the major issues that would need to be addressed in order to better your neighborhood and community and city? What needs to be worked on? The big stuff.
I think the biggest thing that could possibly happen in the community is, I think that the head of the community need to get along. Everything, it starts from the top, and then it has a trickle-down effect. And if you have your politics and your people who you voted in to lead the city can't lead the city or can't come to agreement, or they mistrust and all that other stuff, then what that does is, like for somebody like my mom, I don't have time for that, because they're going to fight and argue about that anyway. You have to have some kind of unity and togetherness and a plan. And to me, if they could come together with unity, togetherness, and a plan, and they present that, out there, it'll draw other people in. But like I said, it's a lot of people that want to come, but they don't want to be bothered with all of, they're gonna do, they're not gonna do, and I don't trust them. And with the last 10, 15 years, with the head of East Cleveland coming under so much scrutiny, it's a lot of mistrust. So I think that if we can get it's like a snake. You get the head together, the tail will follow. Everybody else will get in line. But I think all that, some kind of way we need to come. They need to come together as a community.
You're talking about the mayor,
and city council. And then I think, as far as the community, to reach that, to kind of get that out in the community, that's what's hard. Because, like I said before, they have open forums where they say, well, come one, come all. I need you to come. But how do we get the other people involved? How do we get people to come out their houses? How do we get people to care? Is it through rallies? Is it through, I don't know, because I was a part of the whole thing where they built the playground over here.
Mm-hmm.
And
which one?
Right here behind the Civic Center.
Oh, okay.
And it was more, the sad thing about it was more Case Western Reserve students that helped us build the playground than the people that children are going there. There were people sitting on the porch watching us build the playground, where there was kids who were coming from the college helping build. They don't have an interest in it. They just wanted to help us. But the people who they were building it for were sitting there watching. Or when we walked out and we decided to, canvass the neighborhood after those girls, came up missing. When I'm walking out, me and my search party, we walking out, and those people on the porch literally taking pictures. Oh, they're taking pictures with the cell phone. Yeah, girl, one lady was giving a blow description of what we were doing. And at the same time, she said, you know what, you need to get in that house right there because I swear I smell something over there. And I'm like, you need to come off the porch. This is happening in your community. I can't believe that you're pointing to me, telling me where to go, but you're not involved in this. I don't know what could possibly shake, move, rattle, and roll the community into acting.
What made you get involved? What made you go out there and start searching?
It's my neighborhood. It's my community. It affected me. I saw him, Ivan, all the time because where
What was his name?
Ivan he went by Ivan, but I forget his real name.
I can see his picture, his face
Yeah.
in my mind.
When I go on my upstairs porch, because I live on Shaw, when I go on my upstairs porch, I look down, I can see him sitting on his porch. Because literally, he was 4 houses down from where I live. So I could see him all the time. I saw him all the time, my son walked past there. My niece had just talked to him maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before. She said, she was at the marathon. She was playing numbers for my mom. It's like, you should come over and drink some beer with me. She said, I got to go back home. My granny is waiting on her lottery number, so I'm going back home. That could have been her. And she was like, I got something to do, So it just kind of hit home, and it didn't even have to be next door to me. It could have been right here on Euclid. I still would have participated because this is where I live, and I wanted to be a part of that, I wanted to make a difference. I didn't care how small it was. I just wanted to be a part of that,
Do you think that the condition of East Cleveland had anything to do with the crimes that he committed? And we're talking about the murderer who committed 3 serial murders within a short period of time during the summer of 2012 and killed 3 young women. One of whom was Sheila Terry, who was still in high school.
Right. I don't necessarily, I think yes, and then I think no, because the building that he actually was living in was kind of well kept. It's always lit up. It's always very clean. The landlord fixed up the back. It was very well lit, very clean. So where he was killing the people, it wasn't like an abandoned apartment building or whatever. His place was great. I think that, if you have a lot of blighted or empty, vagrant places, you invite people there because you're going to have squatters, you're going to have people who are homeless, you're going to have stray animals, dogs, cats. That's like a beacon for people to come, say, come, stay here, come out, we could go here and smoke crack, but to say that, that's the way that happened, no, that happened because somebody dropped the ball. And that's because he was supposed to be registered as a sex offender, where his mom was, being in East Cleveland, the whole legal system dropped the ball on that. That's why that happened. Because you don't necessarily, because you're poor, doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean that you're going to do bad things. I think that, like I said, that was just the whole system fell apart on that. Because that could have been avoided had he been registered and everybody knew who he was with his real name. Then that's whatever his name was, lived there, and but it was just a breakdown. It was a breakdown.
And also in his case, because I agree with you, also in his case he had committed a similar crime, but he didn't kill the young woman, and got away with it. Basically, he got plea bargained himself. His lawyer plea bargained him down, and he got 4 years when he should have gotten for attempted rape. He didn't get that. Attempted murder, he didn't get that. So he's back out on the street.
I think the apple don't fall too far from the tree. Now, and you know that is Old Mays' nephew. Okay, Old Mays used to be a teacher, but he molested young boys. And it was right before that time where sex offender, you had to be registered, blah, blah, blah. So instead of him going to jail, he ended up losing his position and his teaching license. Well, like I say, he was a pedophile. He ended up selling his license to someone else.
His teaching license?
Yeah.
You can sell your license?
He took his information, his degree and everything, sold it to this other guy who assumed his identity as a teacher. Oh, I'm sorry. And he actually he went on, it's weird, but he ended up killing 4 or 5 people in California. He's a serial killer. And he was using Old Mays' information. So we're talking about one person tied to 2 serial killers, and one is in your family. And the other one you had a long-term relationship with, So apples don't fall too, and he's adamant about his nephew not committing the crimes.
The other disturbing thing about that is that Omaze is now on our library board.
I'm going to stop talking to you.
And it's like, when I first heard that, because I didn't realize that until last week when somebody else told me, it's like we have apparently no memory of the past.
Exactly.
How could we possibly put somebody on our library board when some of the major users of the library are young people?
Mm-hmm.
How do we have a pedophile on our library board?
Exactly. We have a pedophile on our library board. And then every meeting that we have that is, with the city, through the city, by the city, even when the council had their first official meeting, swearing in the new council members and that kind of thing. And I don't know where they had it, but I don't understand how is it that he is still addressed as Councilman Mays. Councilman Mays, would you like to keep time? How is he keeping time and he's not a council member. He's not an elected official, and you're still giving him official duties. Right. I don't get it. He was part of the whole Anwar thing. He was one of the main ones. So I don't understand how he's officially still official and he hasn't ran or been elected for anything. All these when they ran the story in the Plain Dealer about East Cleveland, he was one of the ones that picture was made front and center on the Metro section, talking about how his building was backed up in so many violations for the city of East Cleveland. And then they were saying how he owed thousands of dollars back in property taxes, and you're sitting on the council. How can you do that, But yeah.
What are you prepared to do to participate in making East Cleveland better?
Everything, anything. I want to see it come back. I don't want it to be the way it was, because I doubt if it'll ever be that again, because times are changing, and times are just changing. So I think it would be better utilized as something else. But anything necessary, whether it is, like I said, I try to attend if I can't go to council meetings, I see them on public access. If they need me to march, I'll march. If they need me to bake, I'll bake. If whatever, in any kind of capacity they need me in, I'll do it. I'm ready to do whatever it is, whatever it takes to bring it back. I mean, there's nothing that I wouldn't do for the city.
And lastly, what are your thoughts on the schools here?
Let me speak directly to the camera. No. They suck. I can go on about the school here. East Cleveland schools used to be one of the top schools in the country. When I was at Shaw, I remember going through a college preparatory class called School of Humanities, and that was for anyone who wanted to go to college. You had to sign up. If you wanted to go to college, you had to commit yourself for 2 years to be in this school. In this school was definitely, your college preparatory classes. I had a teacher named Dr. Malone. She was over the language department. She was a survivor of the Holocaust. And when I tell you, walk into her classroom, if you didn't know the Greek alphabet, you couldn't take her tests or understand what she was saying because everything was written in Greek, everything. We did research papers, term papers. It was really, really hard, but it prepared you for college. And those who were in it, some of them got credit too for colleges, So I remember the old fire chief of East Cleveland, Curtis Jackson. Shaw had, for those who wanted to become pilots, you spent half of your day in your classroom and the other half of your day you went to aviation school. So that aviation school, Benjamin O. Aviation school over there off by Burke Airport, him and another friend of mine, they wanted to be pilots. So they would go over there and learn about flying. And, that's where they spent their time. If you wanted to do graphic arts, you had your mandatory classes, whatever that was, and the rest of your time you were in that. Chambers had one of the top elementary schools in the country. I remember Ebony Magazine, Jet Magazine came in and did a spread about it because it was ranked the #1 elementary school in the country, and it was headed by Joseph Whalen. He was way ahead of his time educationally.
Was he a black man?
A white man.
Okay.
Way ahead of his time educationally. I remember in Chambers he implemented extended school year program, and the extended school year program was for those. It was a program where he wanted all the kids to not just do the R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, that kind of things. He wanted you to get out in the community to touch and feel your environment in order to really learn. And I'm an avid believer in that too. In order to really know about something or anything, you visually you look at it, but you need to touch it, you need to feel it, you need to be a part of that environment. So what he would do is send us out to different areas. For instance, we would go to the Music Settlement House for a week at a time. So from the time you got to school, the bus would pick us up and we go to Music Settlement House all day. Then when school was over, we come home and then we go home. We go back home. Much the same for the whole week. So at the Music Settlement House, we learned about Indians. We learned about log cabins. We learned about baking bread. We even had to bake our own bread. We learned about tea parties and how to this, that, and the settlers. I mean, just everything. Then we would spend a week at Hale Farm. And then when you got to the 6th grade, you could spend a week overnight at Hale Farm. And when you went there, they told you how to tap trees and honey and auctions and pigs and ducks, and so therefore your education it became 3D. It was a feel and on hand thing. And then your last 2 months of school, that's when he constantly focused on the math and writing and all that other stuff. The only other thing is that for the extended school year program kids, you had to go to school most of the summer because all the rest of the year you spent your time at Hale Farm, museum, this, that, and so out in the community experience and everything. And then you had to come back in to get the other half of it. So it made us all well-rounded. I remember that Joseph Riccardi was the music teacher and Dr. Alvin Fulton was the band director. And so he had a program where the band director, the musical people would come to the elementary school. You can't teach a kid about anything if you're trying to reach them at junior high or high school because that level, they're already set. They're already, I don't want to play out in the 10th grade. I don't want to be in a band, It's already set. So what they did was focus in on get them at the elementary school level. So he would have Mr. Riccardi, Mr. Fulton come in. And every day they would go to different classrooms and we did music. And we started out with the recorders, and then we worked our way up to the drums and then the violins, but they came in at that level. Back during the time, he had a partnership with East Cleveland Community Theater. Mr. Martin would come in, and we would look forward to Mr. Martin coming in. He would come in, and he was the king, the master of pantomime. His thing was East Cleveland Community Theater. So he would come in, and he would introduce us to theater. And that aspect, we would do plays, we would do pantomime. To get us involved in, we'd go up to East Cleveland Community Theater, actually see a play. I remember being in God's Trombone with Horace Richardson. He was kind of famous Broadway actor who was killed down at Cleveland State when they had that shooting down in Cleveland State some years ago. He was one of the ones that was killed. But he was over at East Cleveland Community Theater, and I remember doing the play God's Trombone. I was a dancer, slave dancer in the play. But like I said, all of them would come down to the elementary school, and they would grab the kids, and that was part of your learning. It wasn't something you got because you were good, you know. I remember the teacher, Miss Clark, used to say, if we act up or be bad or whatever, you know, most teachers will say, oh, you can't do recess, or I'm not going to read the story. She was like, that's ridiculous. That's only going to make you worse. Mm-hmm. I'm still going to read the story. You're still going to get recess. Nothing was ever taken away. And like I said, when they came, when you had the musicians, and then you had East Cleveland Community Theater, you had other people at Partnership, Music Settlement House that came into the schools, you can't help but have dynamite kids, because we had everything. We were getting it from all angles, you know, from all sides. Now the kids are lucky to do 2 field trips a year.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
What did that teacher do to discipline the kids if they did have trouble? What did she do?
She didn't.
Oh, okay.
She didn't.
Okay.
I can't even think of a time. Well, I take that back. That was back in the day when you would write, I will be this, well, I will be that, you know, but there wasn't
no taking away of anything.
No taking away, because she said all of that is important. I'm not going to take art from you because you need art. You know, you need it.
So do you believe that because she said that environment that the kids actually behaved better than maybe in the standard class?
They did.
Okay,
They did. And we also had Mr. Burrows, Clayton Burrows, who was a phenomenal, fresh out of college student that was no nonsense, that was the Joe Clark, him and Mr. Benson of that era. And literally, he was maybe like 21 when he first started teaching, so he wasn't that much older than the students. And he walked in that classroom, he took control, and he would tell his class, line up. They would line up, walk like this to the cafeteria, sit down, and they wouldn't open their mouths. And when time came, they would all look, there was a head lead, they would line up, and they would walk back. He didn't have to do anything. They were the best class. But like I said, back in that time, you had the discipline, which you could do that. And then, like I said, you had all this other thing that was going on. You had, like I said, all that factored in. You had the playgrounds, you had the swimming pools, you had the skating rink. All that, you know, was right here. Now you don't have any of that. Now they're focusing on math and reading, but they don't have librarians in the school. You know, you have your books sitting on the floor, you know, and there's no categorizing books, or no Dewey system or anything like that where they're sitting on the shelves. The kids get them off the floor. I said, well, how do you know to turn it back in? Oh, we just leave them there, you know, that kind of haphazard. When I look at the books, some of them I'm horrified. Where's my daddy, you know, or my daddy's in jail, or, you know, I'm looking at the books and I'm like, wow, you know, No Wrinkle in Time, you know, with Gwendolyn Brooks, no, those kind of books, you know, real ethnic books. And I'm like, wow, really? You know, that's going to the library, you'll see. It'll shock you.
Sounds like some type of program came in and gave them books, you know,
Yeah.
along those lines.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with having those kind of books,
it's
but
not.
you need a diversity
Right.
of, you need to expose
You need
kids to everything.
They need to know Charlotte's Web, not Where's My Daddy, you know. Things that we grew up as kids that we knew. I knew, like I said, I got into reading just by Miss Clark. She would sit and she would read to us every time. After lunch, we'd come back and she would read for 30 minutes. And she would read that book, A Wrinkle in Time by Gwendolyn Brooks. And she won, she won the Nobel Peace Prize, whatever for that book. But anyway, I would sit there like this. And she's black. I used to be like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Because she made it so interesting and so fascinating. And it literally took me from where I was to different places. So that opened my mind up about reading and just all of that. Now, like I say, they have none of that. None of that. And they don't want any help. Because when I saw they did a little miniature reunion for Chambers people, Chambers kids, personnel, and it was out at the time whatever, that nightclub, jazz nightclub. And Mr. Whalen was there. And I was, he tours and he does a lot. He just retired from John Carroll, but he tours all over the country. And what he does, his forte is going into school systems and turning them around, And I said, oh my God, Mr. Whalen. Matter of fact, he's the one that gave me this paper. That's him, and that's him in the picture. That's Mr. Whalen. Mm-hmm. And that's, some of some people from the East Cleveland Community Theater, because even he was in, he did plays and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so I asked him, I said, oh my God, Mr. Whalen, I wish you could come back. I wish you could come back to Chambers and, help the school district. I wish that you could come back, And he said, I'll offer to come back. I told them I will come back and I will help them. And they told me no. They don't want help.
So, how do you think the district got this way?
That's a hard one to answer. I don't know. That's a really hard one to answer. I think it had to do with a lot of just people coming in who really didn't have, they had their own personal agenda, and they really didn't have the city or the school at heart. It was just something, it was just an influx of people, and it started with one, and then it became two, and then three, and it just, now you have all these people who really don't care about the city. Some of them really didn't even live in the city. They were just here to get what they could get out of it, not really, caring about what's happening in here.
So if you could change one thing to try to turn things around in the city, what would that be?
I would get rid of all, if I could, in order to change the city or to change the environment, I would change the people in the city. And I know that's a hard thing to do. But I would change all the people in the city. And the only way you could change the people in the city is change what you have to offer in the city. I think by building condos, housing for college kids, you're going to change the texture and the vibe in the community. Whereas now you have, like I said, very transient. You have a whole lot of renters, a whole lot of people that are non-plus, non-interest, non-this, by changing the structures, you're going to change the people. Mm-hmm. And that in and of itself, just changing the people, you have to start there. You have to bring in homeowners, people who want to buy into East Cleveland. Because if I buy a home here, then I care about if you cut your grass, if your music is too loud, or that kind of stuff. But if I'm renting, I don't care. I'm not going to cut the grass, Like I say, you have to change the people that you need to bring in homeowners. You need to bring a different vibe of people.
So, and then if you could change one thing about the school district, what would that be?
I would bring back Mr. Whalen. I would bring him in. I would bring in Mr. Whalen, and I would bring in Clayton Burrows, because they both came up with proposals to come back into the city, because Mr. Burrows taught in the district at all levels, from elementary to high school, and he retired from Shaw, And he spent some years just coming up with a way to, at that time when the school system wasn't even bad and he seen it was faltering, he had came up with a plan. You know, I got a 5-star plan that could turn this around. They were like, no. They were like,
I
no.
met him when I was student teaching at Superior. He was the principal.
Yeah.
And I know that later on at that school, he built a community garden, which was later just, I saw it over the years, just die.
Mm-hmm.
But he had done that. But I remember one thing he told me, because at the time I was student teaching, I was in a classroom with a teacher who wasn't really, we'll say, committed.
Mm-hmm.
Just going through the motions.
Right.
And, you know, I was a student teacher, so student teachers, you know, always have lots of ideas and stuff. So Mr. Clayton told me at the time, he said, without mentioning anybody, I know who's doing their job and who's just going through the motions. He said, I see the whole picture. But when you're in charge, you know, you have to have some of this and some of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it let me know
Right.
that he recognized
Right.
what was happening in the classroom I was in. But he was, you know, he was really phenomenal. And I remember one of our other students in my class, young white student, mentioned having worked with Mr. Clayton and how just impressed he was. And Mr.
Yeah.
Clayton was the thing. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So,
He really and truly was. It's funny because him and my sister are very good friends.
Mm-hmm.
And my sister was the very first class that he taught at Chambers. When he came, he was her very first class. And as a result, through the years, they cultivated a friendship. So, you know, like I said, he wasn't much older than his students, but he commanded. And he demanded respect.
I call him Mr. Clayton, Mr. Burroughs.
Yeah.
You know who I mean.
Yeah, I know. But he demanded respect, you know, and he didn't necessarily have to do anything. It was just the way his aura, you know, and he made kids want to learn, you know, to want to be more, you know, and that's lacking in the school. You have teachers that are counting down to retirement. You have teachers who totally can't relate. You have teachers who's been in the district over 30 years still doing 1975 stuff. You know, it's totally unrelatable to the kids now in today's society. You have very few teachers that are passionate about what they do. They're just drawing down a paycheck. And the last thing you want to be is disconnected from what your students. Like I said, I had a teacher. My son had a teacher in the second grade. Like I was telling you before, petroglyph was a word, and I'm like, in the second grade, where are we relating that in the city of East Cleveland? A petroglyph? I don't even know. You know, how could we use that in a sentence? I went to the pentagram. I mean, what? You know, so you have teachers that are totally unrelatable that should have, you know, long time retired. They can't touch them because they've been there so long. You know, the district is like, oh, I can't say nothing to them. I don't want to get sued. So they leave them there. But if you have a child that is in a classroom and this teacher sucks, oh my God, next year, do you know how far behind they are? You know, it's the worst thing ever. I mean, you can fire a doctor, you can fire a electrical worker, you can fire anything, but the hardest thing to fire is a teacher, to get them out, because you got the union and everything else backing them, so they can stay there, not doing, like I say, petroglyphs.
Right.
30 years later, totally unrelatable to the kids, you know.
So maybe we need to get a new system in here, which would have to come by vote, where voters have more control over the school district.
Absolutely. I think the old blood, I think that I think the school board needs to be totally. I'm glad that Tiffany's on there because that's new blood. I think that you have people on there that say they're for the school but not really doing anything. Case in point, I think they're two-faced. Oh yeah, I'm trying. Well, to go back, I'm not doing anything.
Because if they were really for the schools, then we wouldn't have the same leadership that we have.
We most certainly, and we would not still have a F grade in our district, seeing that our kids are failing. We have a school district that uh, right across the street from where we stay is they tore down a house. The house was owned by should have been on the National Historic Registry. The house was owned by John T. Gill, and he was he built Tower City. Now, like I said, the house should have been on the registry of historical places because we were talking about East Cleveland had your architects. That house is sitting right next to the old Peter Pan Donuts. That's the Elliott Knox house. That was a famous architecture company back in the day. That place should, matter of fact, it is on the historical registry, but it's fallen into total disrepair. A strong wind can knock it over now. You know, money should be here in the community to save those. Well, anyway, that house, John T. Gill, they did an article about it. You know, I forget in the Plain Dealer, and it was talking about how beautiful it was. You know, the architecture, who owned it. You know, it's a shame that it's in this area that has so many jewels that are being torn down, and then people don't know what they have.
Where's it located?
Matter of fact, it was on the corner of. Was it on the corner of Carlia? Because it's the beauty shop. It used to be the beauty shop. I know where I see it. The vacant. Matter of fact, they just tore the house down in February. Well, that house, like I said, was the man who built Tower City, John T. Gill. When they did the article on it, I happened to run across it, and I'm reading the article, and I'm like, oh my God, you're kidding me, So and that was another reason I like Lakeview Cemetery, because I went up there, took pictures of, his hill headstone, because I like to connect things with things. So I'm looking at it, I'm reading the article, and I'm like, oh my God, really? I said, this house was owned by John T. Gill. Wow, this is so fascinating. So the guy was saying how it was sad that East Cleveland had all these jewels. The city is so poor, they can't do anything with it, and the house is falling in repair, and blah, blah, blah. So somebody chimed in and said, oh, I know exactly what house you're talking about. The house is gorgeous, and, I'm going to see if I can get volunteers to go up there and help me to clean it out. Well, come back. I had some volunteers on the weekend, had some firemen, and a couple of police officers go up there and help me, try to clear out the debris in the house. And it's a shame that the house is going into disrepair, and shame on the city, blah, blah, blah. And the person who's making the comment was Dr. Bahovier. When you pull up the deed to the house, it's owned by the Board of Education.
So they could have stopped it.
They could have stopped it.
Right.
You're talking about you making yourself a hero. Making yourself a hero. But you're the one who owns the house. You're the one, you own the house. Oh, and he was like, oh, kudos, people. Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. But when I pull up the title, I'm like, this is owned by the Board of Education. Really? You didn't do anything. But you made yourself big. And that's what I found, that she does that a lot. She was always saying, I'm fighting for the community, and go back to, I'm fighting for the community.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to say? For the record, anything at all?
What does it have to be pertaining to this, or?
Well, yeah, no. What, is there something else you want to say?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. That's nothing. I remember growing up in East Cleveland, and the irony of it is that to find out about my blackness, or really to discover that I was black, I found that out through a little white Irish man. His name was Pastor Bob Gahagan, and he was the pastor of St. James Lutheran Church right there on Hayden Avenue. And every summer he had the food drive where he would feed the community. He had the food bank. So if you were hungry, you come there. We would all take turns to volunteer and stock, give groceries out to anybody that was in need. You either come or we'll take it to you. That's what we did as kids. But every summer he would run a Christian camp, but the Christian camp was based on Africa, and every group had to have a name. Either you were Watusi, or you were a Zulu, or you were Ashanti, and your whole time in camp, that's what you studied, the African tribe and everything there was to know about the African tribe. And at the end of the camp, the group that knew the most were the winners, so you actually got trophies. He was the one who taught me all the words and all the verses to lift every voice and sing, and we had a singing competition. Here was this little white Catholic Pastor Bob Gahagan, who was spot on in Black history. To this day, I know as much as I do because of him. He was the one who planted that seed, not my mom, not my teachers, but this little man who came in and said, you matter. Your history shouldn't be a mystery, and I'm going to be the one to teach you. And he taught it to me, and we moved off. He's in New York now. He has a parish stand now there, and he's soon retired. But I want to say for at least 7 years of my life growing up, he was a part of my life, and I, like I said, I learned about me, and it was okay for me to be Black, and I accepted my Blackness because he accepted it. I can't even describe it, but he made me okay with being who I was, because he helped me develop a sense of pride and teach me about me, about being Black.